The Alpha let his blindfolded heir choose the Luna. The kingdom froze when he stopped. Torches burned along the marble hall, their flames flickering, casting shadows that danced against the walls like restless spirits. Tonight was the night of the choosing, a ritual older than any living soul could remember. The heir, a young man of barely 20 summers, stood at the center of the hall, blindfolded, as the court fell silent. He felt the weight of centuries pressing on his shoulders. The blindfold was silk, soft against his skin, yet it carried the symbolism of both trust and surrender. With each step, the cold stone beneath his feet seemed to whisper warnings. Choose wrongly and the kingdom could fall. Yet the heir's heart beat with a mixture of fear and excitement. He had grown up with tales of this moment, but nothing in stories could prepare him for the raw energy in the hall tonight. The Alpha, the ruler of the land and his father in all but blood, watched from the raised throne. He was a man both feared and revered, known for his unmatched strength and a mind that could pierce through lies as easily as sunlight through mist. His eyes were fixed on the heir, dark and unreadable. None could guess his thoughts, and perhaps not even the heir himself. The heir's hands reached out, trembling slightly. The Luna candidates were arranged around the hall in a perfect circle. Each exuded a subtle glow under the torchlight, not just of beauty, but of power. They were not merely women or men to be chosen. They were born to shape the kingdom alongside its future ruler. Each carried a story, a secret, a strength, and the heir was expected to sense it, to feel it without sight. He stretched his fingers forward and touched the first candidate. She was cool to the touch, her presence calm, like a lake at dawn. He moved to the next, whose energy crackled like lightning under his fingertips. Each choice whispered a different promise: safety, passion, loyalty, or danger. He paused, listening to the rhythm of his own heartbeat and the echoes of the centuries-old ritual. Then he felt her, one hand softer than the rest, yet it seemed to hum with a hidden intensity. There was something in the way the energy moved beneath his fingers, something that made his chest tighten. The heir did not know her name, nor the shadows of her past, yet he felt compelled to linger. The court held its breath. The Alpha leaned forward slightly, his presence commanding the room even without a word. And yet when the heir's hand hovered over the chosen Luna, the Alpha did something no one expected. He raised his hand, long and pale under the torchlight, and the motion froze the air in place. The entire hall seemed to stop breathing. The heir's heart skipped. His hand remained suspended, unsure. "Father," he whispered, his voice barely audible above the silence. The Alpha's gaze did not waver. "I cannot let you choose, not yet," he said. The words were calm, but they carried the weight of mountains. The heir's hand dropped and confusion knotted his stomach. The court murmured, scandalized, but no one dared move. The Alpha's presence alone silenced all objections. The Luna stepped back, bowing slightly. Her eyes met the heir's, though he could not see them, and he felt a pull stronger than fear or curiosity. It was a whisper of something ancient, a promise of destiny. The heir wanted to reach for her again, but the Alpha's gaze pinned him like steel. "What do you mean, not yet?" the heir asked, trying to steady his voice. The blindfolded world seemed narrower than ever, a darkness filled with tension and expectation. The Alpha's eyes did not leave him. "There are forces at work you cannot yet understand," he said. "The bond is not only of heart, it is of power, and power is dangerous if wielded without knowledge." The heir swallowed hard. He had heard whispers of the dangers of choosing a Luna too soon, of curses and secrets woven into the bloodlines of the kingdom. Yet he had never imagined feeling the weight of it in such a tangible way. Each beat of his heart seemed amplified, echoing against the stone walls and the torchlight. A wind blew through the open windows of the hall, carrying with it the scent of frost and distant pine. The air shivered. The court remained silent, yet the tension was almost unbearable. Each Luna stood perfectly still, as if they too could feel the invisible thread pulling at destiny itself. The heir tried to step backward, but the alpha's hand signaled him to stop. "Do not move," the alpha commanded. "You must feel before you act, and sometimes feeling is not enough." The heir closed his eyes behind the blindfold, trying to focus not on sight, but on touch, sound, and intuition. He felt the energy of each Luna like waves against the shore, some gentle, some violent. Yet one wave kept returning to him, insistent and persistent. It was the one he had almost chosen, the one the alpha had stopped him from touching. "Why this hesitation?" the heir asked softly, almost to himself. "Why me?" The alpha's voice, low and measured, came from the throne. "Because power is not given, it is earned, and the heart must be tested." The heir swallowed. The words were not a comfort. They were a challenge and a warning. He realized that tonight he was not just choosing a Luna. He was stepping into the unknown, into a web of fate and magic that might bind him forever. And the alpha himself was a part of that web, both protector and judge, teacher and enigma. Minutes passed like hours. The heir felt the Luna's presence again, the one that had called to him. There was warmth beneath her coolness, a pulse that matched his own heartbeat. He wanted to reach, to feel her fully, but the alpha's eyes were everywhere, sharp as daggers even from the distance. "You sense her, do you not?" the alpha said finally, his voice carrying across the hall. The heir nodded, though the blindfold hid the certainty in his gesture. "Do you know why?" I do not," the heir admitted. His hand itched to move. His chest ached with longing and frustration. He had spent all his life preparing for this moment, and now it felt like a test without rules. "Because," the alpha said, his tone now quieter, almost reverent, "some bonds cannot be chosen blindly. Some require patience and courage." The heir's mind raced. Courage, patience, bonds. What did it mean to bond with a Luna, to rule, to protect, to love? All these questions tangled together, and the darkness behind his blindfold seemed to grow thicker. Then, almost imperceptibly, the Luna moved closer. He could feel her presence, even without sight, like a heartbeat brushing against his own. The tension was unbearable, electric, and yet terrifying. Something deep inside told him that touching her again would change everything. The alpha rose slowly from the throne, his movements deliberate and commanding. The court shrank back instinctively, recognizing that no mortal dared interrupt the alpha once he moved. "Tonight is not for choosing," he said. "Tonight is for understanding. Tomorrow we may try again." The heir's hand trembled. He had not realized how much he had hoped, how much desire had grown within him for this unseen presence. The Luna's energy lingered in his palm, leaving a faint warmth that pulsed like a secret promise. "And if I cannot wait," he whispered. His voice was small, but it carried an edge of defiance and longing. The alpha's eyes softened just for a moment, a glimpse of something buried deep within him, perhaps regret, perhaps something heavier like love restrained. "Then," he said slowly, "you must learn why waiting is the hardest choice of all." The heir's heart thudded in his chest. He did not know what the alpha meant, but the words echoed in the hollow space of his soul. The Luna remained a whisper in the air, a presence felt but unseen, a destiny that had already begun to entwine with his own. The hall remained silent long after the alpha returned to his throne. The heir stood in place, blindfolded, aware of every heartbeat, every whisper of movement, every flicker of shadow cast by the torchlight. The world seemed suspended, waiting, as though it too was holding its breath. Finally, the heir dared to move again, taking a tentative step back. The blindfold hid the world, yet he could sense a shift in the energy around him. The Luna had not gone. Her presence lingered like smoke, weaving around him, hinting at promises yet to be revealed. Outside the hall, the wind carried the sound of distant wolves, howling at the moon. The air shivered, unsure if it was fear, anticipation, or something else entirely. He felt alive in a way he had never known, and yet weighed down by the enormity of what lay ahead. The Alpha watched him quietly, eyes narrowed, thoughts unreadable. The court whispered behind their hands, but none dared break the spell of the night. The choosing had begun, and though no choice had yet been made, the threads of destiny had already been set into motion. The heir closed his eyes again behind the blindfold, and for the first time he understood that this night was not about seeing but feeling, not about choosing but becoming. And somewhere in the shadows of the torchlight, the Luna waited, a silent promise in the dark. The Alpha's voice echoed one last time, almost a whisper, almost a command. "Patience, my heir. Your destiny is not yours to seize yet." And with that, the night stretched on, heavy and electric, leaving the heir alone with the pulse of the unseen, the weight of centuries, and the promise of a bond that could change everything. The castle was quiet now, but its silence was heavy, filled with unspoken words and lingering tension. The heir walked the corridors, blindfold removed, feeling the weight of the night pressing against his chest. He could still sense her presence, the Luna he had almost touched during the choosing. Her energy lingered like a shadow in the corners of his mind, impossible to ignore. He paused by the tall windows of the east wing, looking out at the forest that bordered the kingdom. Moonlight spilled over the snow-laden trees, painting the world silver. He remembered the Alpha's words. Some bonds require patience and courage. The heir did not fully understand them yet, but the words echoed in his heart. A sudden breeze stirred the torches along the hall. The shadows twisted and danced, reminding him of the stories he had heard as a child, tales of spirits that haunted the woods, of curses placed on royal lines, and of magic older than the kingdom itself. Most of the stories were meant to frighten children. Yet tonight they felt real. Thinking of her again, a voice murmured behind him. The heir turned to see the Alpha stepping out from the shadows. His eyes, sharp and dark, seemed to pierce through the dim light. He was closer than usual, and for a moment the heir felt the same mix of fear and fascination that had gripped him during the choosing. I cannot stop thinking of her," the heir admitted honestly, his voice barely above a whisper. "I do not even know her name, and yet," he trailed off, unsure how to explain the pull he felt. The Alpha's expression remained unreadable, yet there was a flicker of something softer in his eyes. "That is the danger of this ritual," he said slowly. "It is not just about choosing a Luna. It is about recognizing the bond, the responsibility, and the power that comes with it. You feel it because it is real, and real is dangerous." The heir swallowed. He had always respected the Alpha, feared him even, but now he felt the weight of the man's words in a way he had never imagined. "Then, how do I know what is right?" he asked. "You do not," the Alpha said. "Not yet. That is why you must learn. And learning begins with understanding the past." The heir frowned. "The past? The past of the kingdom, the past of the Luna, the past of your own line," the Alpha replied. "All are connected. Shadows from long ago reach into this night, shaping your choices before you even take them." For the first time, the heir felt a pang of fear deeper than he had known. The choosing was not just a ceremony, it was a test of courage, wisdom, and strength. He was not only choosing a Luna, he was stepping into a legacy of power and danger, and one misstep could unravel everything. The Alpha gestured for the heir to follow. "Come," he said, "I will show you something few are allowed to see." They walked through the castle, descending into hidden corridors lined with ancient tapestries. The walls seemed to whisper as they passed, histories of victories, betrayals, and loves that had changed the kingdom forever. The heir's curiosity battled with his apprehension. At last they arrived at a door made of dark wood, carved with symbols that seemed older than the kingdom itself. The Alpha pushed it open, revealing a room filled with books, scrolls, and artifacts that radiated a quiet power. "This," the Alpha said, "is the Chamber of Shadows. Here the past is preserved. Here you will learn what it means to lead, to love, and to bear the weight of destiny." The heir stepped inside, awed. The air was thick with knowledge and magic. He could feel the energy of the room pressing gently against him, like a pulse that synchronized with his own heartbeat. In the corner, a small chest glimmered faintly. The Alpha approached it and lifted the lid, revealing a collection of old letters and journals. These belonged to the Luna chosen centuries ago, the Alpha explained. Her story is a warning, a guide, and a reflection of what might come to pass if you fail to understand the bond you seek. The heir picked up one of the journals carefully, feeling the texture of the worn leather. As he opened it, he read the first lines. To be bound is to trust, to surrender, and to fight the shadows that live within and around us. The words resonated with him. He thought of the Luna from the choosing, the one he could not yet touch, the one whose energy seemed to haunt him even in absence. There was a connection here, deeper than he had realized, and the journal was beginning to reveal it. "Why are you showing me this?" the heir asked. "Because you cannot choose wisely if you do not understand the stakes," the Alpha said. "Your heart will guide you, but your mind and your knowledge must follow. And there is more," he added, his voice lowering. "The Luna you sensed carries a shadow from the past. A curse that has not yet been broken." The heir stiffened. He had heard whispers of curses, ancient magic that could bind or destroy, yet he had never imagined that the Luna he felt drawn to could carry such a burden. "A curse?" he asked, his voice trembling. "Yes," the Alpha said. "It is not a curse of hatred or malice. It is a shadow that lingers, waiting for understanding, patience, and courage to dissolve it. Many have failed before. Many have chosen without seeing, and the kingdom has paid the price." The heir's mind spun. The Luna, the curse, the choosing, all of it was larger than he had imagined. He felt the weight of his own inexperience pressing against him. And yet, despite fear, he felt an undeniable pull toward her, as though the bond was not simply desire but destiny itself. "You will meet her," the Alpha continued, "but not as others do. You must first understand her strength and her pain. Only then will the choosing be true." The heir nodded, though uncertainty gnawed at him. He wanted to see her, to reach for her, but he knew now that patience was not weakness. It was necessity. He had to prepare, to grow, to understand what lay ahead. As they left the chamber, the heir could not shake the feeling that the walls themselves were watching. Shadows moved where there should have been none, and the torches flickered as though the air was alive with unseen eyes. The forest outside whispered, carrying the scent of snow, pine, and something older, something that belonged to the Luna. Days passed, and the heir found himself wandering the castle more often, seeking the quiet spaces where he could think and feel. He learned to sense her presence without sight, to detect the subtle shifts of energy that spoke of her movements. Each time he approached, the pull grew stronger, yet he resisted. The Alpha's warning echoed in his mind. Some bonds cannot be chosen blindly. Then, one evening, the heir ventured into the forest that bordered the kingdom. Moonlight draped the trees like silver silk, and the snow crunched beneath his boots. He could sense her here, not far away. The Luna moved with a grace that seemed unnatural, her steps quiet and deliberate. She did not speak, yet her presence was a song the heir could not ignore. "Why do you hide?" the heir asked softly, unsure if he even expected an answer. The Luna's voice came, not through sound but through the energy around him. "I do not hide. I am bound to the shadows, and the shadows bind me. Approach too quickly and you may be lost with me." The heir swallowed, feeling a chill that was not from the cold. "I will not let that happen," he said. "I will learn. I will understand. I will be ready." The Luna's energy pulsed like a heartbeat in response, closer now, yet still distant. It was as though she was both near and far, a constant presence that tested his patience, his courage, and his heart. Days turned into weeks. The heir studied the journals, practiced control of his own energy, and learned from the Alpha's lessons. The bond he felt with the Luna deepened, not through touch or sight, but through understanding and presence. Each lesson was a test, each moment a step toward a choice that was not yet his to make. And all the while the shadows whispered. The curse, ancient and patient, watched from its hidden corners. It waited for fear, doubt, or weakness to claim him. But the heir felt something stronger, a determination born of longing, of hope, and of the unspoken promise between him and the Luna. One night the Alpha called him to the throne room. The torches burned brighter than usual, casting long, sharp shadows. The court was gathered, silent, watching the heir as though the moment of revelation had arrived. "You have learned much," the Alpha said, his voice steady. "But the final lesson is not in the past, or in knowledge, or even in courage. It is in facing the bond itself." The heir's heart thudded. He knew what was coming. The Luna would appear, and he would have to feel, understand, and confront the energy that had haunted him for weeks. The doors opened, and she stepped into the hall. Moonlight poured over her, silver and ethereal, highlighting her presence in a way that made the air itself seem to shimmer. The heir felt his breath catch. This was the moment he had been preparing for, yet nothing could have readied him for the intensity of it. The Luna's eyes met his, and though he saw her for the first time clearly, he felt as if he had known her for a lifetime. The air pulsed with the weight of unspoken words, with power, with fear, and with longing. The Alpha's gaze moved between them. "You feel her," he said, more statement than question. "And she feels you. The shadows will test you. The bond will demand truth, and only one choice will free you both." The heir nodded, understanding at last that the choosing was no longer about ceremony or tradition. It was about courage, understanding, and the willingness to face the unknown. The Luna stepped closer, the energy between them growing, yet still dangerous, still fragile. The shadows shifted in the corners of the hall, moving like liquid darkness, waiting for a mistake, a hesitation, a moment of weakness. The air reached out, and just as their fingers were about to touch, the hall shivered with cold, unnatural wind. The torches flickered violently and the court gasped. The Alpha's hand went to the hilt of his sword, but his eyes never left the air. "You must be ready," the Alpha whispered, "or all is lost." The heir's heart raced. He could feel her presence, the pull of the bond and the shadow of the curse waiting. He took a steadying breath and whispered, "I am ready, I think." The Luna's eyes softened, yet the shadows in the hall seemed to lean closer. "Then let the bond test you," she said, her voice like the wind through the forest. The hall held its breath. Outside, the snow swirled, reflecting the pale moonlight. And in that moment the air understood. The choosing was no longer just a ceremony. It was a test of heart, courage, and soul. And the shadows were watching. The castle felt different now. A quiet frost had settled over its walls, creeping through the corridors like a whisper of something forbidden. The air had felt it the moment he woke. The cold was not only outside but in the air itself, in the shadows that clung to corners and followed his every step. The curse of the Luna was stirring. He walked through the courtyard, the snow crunching under his boots. His thoughts were heavy with the memory of the night in the throne room when he had almost touched her hand. That moment had changed him, though he had not yet understood how. The Luna had felt the bond too. He could sense it still, a pulse that matched his own heartbeat, yet carried a tension sharper than any blade. The Luna appeared at the edge of the courtyard, stepping gracefully over the snow. Her presence seemed to part the frost around her, as though she carried warmth even in the midst of the unnatural cold. The air approached, feeling both anticipation and unease. "You came," she said softly, her voice carrying in the still air. "I had to," he replied, though his voice betrayed his uncertainty. "The bond, I can feel it, and the shadows are growing stronger." The Luna nodded, her gaze distant for a moment. "The curse is restless. It senses your hesitation. Fear feeds it, and it will test you both heart, mind, and soul. You must be ready." "I will be," he said, trying to sound braver than he felt. "I want to be ready." But even as he spoke, doubt gnawed at him. The Alpha's words from weeks ago returned. Some bonds require patience and courage. He understood now that patience alone was not enough. Courage would be needed, but courage was easier said than felt. They walked together through the forest, the snow crunching under their feet, the moonlight filtering through the branches. Every step carried the weight of destiny. The air could feel the Luna's energy weaving with his own, fragile and hesitant, yet growing stronger with each heartbeat. "Tell me about the curse," he said, finally. "I need to understand it if I am to face it." The Luna's gaze softened, though a shadow passed over her face. "It is old, older than the kingdom. It was born from a broken bond, a betrayal that was never healed. It lingers, waiting for a choice that can set it free or destroy it. I cannot touch it, and yet it touches me." The heir frowned. "Can it be broken?" "Yes," she said, her voice firm yet edged with fear. "But only by the bond, only by facing the truth of our hearts, and truth is rarely easy." The heir's chest tightened. He understood that this was more than a test of courage. It was a test of trust, of honesty, of willingness to face the shadows within themselves, and he was not sure if he was ready. As they reached a frozen stream, the Luna stopped. Her reflection shimmered in the ice, fractured by cracks that ran through the surface. The heir looked at her and felt an ache in his chest. The cracks mirrored the curse, he realized, beautiful, strong, and yet fragile, threatening to break at the slightest touch. "You feel it too, don't you?" she asked, stepping closer. "The pull between us. The bond that is growing stronger with each heartbeat." "Yes," he admitted, unable to hide it. "And it terrifies me." "Good," she whispered, a small, almost imperceptible smile on her lips. "Fear means you care. Fear means the bond is real, and real can save or destroy." The wind howled through the trees, and for a moment the snow swirled like silver fire. Shadows moved at the edges of the forest, darker than night, watching, waiting. The heir felt a shiver run down his spine. The curse was aware of them. It was testing them already. They did not speak for a long while, walking side by side, each feeling the other's presence more acutely than words could describe. Every glance, every step, every heartbeat was part of the bond, yet the shadows lingered, threatening to fracture it before it could be fully formed. Days passed, and the castle felt colder still. The heir found himself training with the Alpha, learning not only the art of leadership, but also the subtle ways to control his energy, to sense the unseen, and to protect the bond that was forming between him and the Luna. The Alpha was a strict teacher, but he allowed glimpses of understanding, hints of past regrets, and lessons hidden in stories of failures and triumphs. "You are growing stronger," the Alpha said one evening as the heir practiced in the courtyard. "But strength alone will not save you. You must understand the bond, and you must understand her. Only then will you be ready for what comes." "I do understand," the heir replied, though he did not know if the words were true. "I feel it. Every day I feel it more." The Alpha's gaze lingered on him. Feeling is not enough. It can mislead. Courage can fail. And the shadows, they will never forgive weakness. The heir nodded, silently accepting the weight of responsibility. He knew that the bond with the Luna was no longer just a matter of choice. It was a matter of survival, of destiny, and of the fragile balance between power and love. One evening, a sudden storm blew through the kingdom, dark clouds swallowing the moon. The castle trembled as wind and ice tore through the battlements. The heir and the Luna had ventured into the forest, unaware of how the storm had strengthened the shadows. "Be careful," the Luna warned, her voice trembling slightly. "The shadows are stronger in the storm. They can reach you if your mind is not steady." The heir nodded, gripping his cloak tightly. He could feel the wind trying to push him back, trying to separate him from her. And yet the bond pulsed between them, a thread of light in the darkness, fragile but undeniable. Suddenly, a shadow broke free from the trees, twisting and writhing like smoke. The heir stepped forward instinctively, placing himself between the Luna and the darkness. His chest tightened, and for a moment, fear threatened to overwhelm him. "Stand close," the Luna said, her voice steady now. "Our bond, it can repel the shadows, but we must trust each other completely." The heir nodded, stepping closer to her. He reached out, not fully touching but letting their energies mingle. The pulse between them strengthened, a rhythm that matched their heartbeats. The shadow recoiled slightly, hissing like wind through broken branches. "Do not falter," she whispered. "Not now." The heir swallowed hard, forcing his fear into submission. He could feel her strength, her courage, her presence guiding him. Together they faced the darkness, and slowly the storm seemed to falter, the wind losing its bite, the shadows retreating. When the storm finally passed, they stood in silence, the forest calm again. The heir looked at her, his chest still tight with adrenaline. I understand now," he said softly. "The bond, it is not just about me or you. It is about both of us and the world around us. I have to protect it. I have to protect you." The Luna smiled faintly, a mixture of relief and admiration in her eyes. "And I will protect it too. But the shadows are not gone. They are patient. They are waiting." Days passed into nights, and the tension between them grew, both in the bond and in the unspoken emotions that hovered like fragile threads. Every glance, every shared moment, carried the weight of what they could lose. And the heir felt a new kind of fear, not only for the curse or the shadows, but for the possibility of losing her, the Luna who had become the center of his world in ways he could not yet name. The Alpha watched from the castle, observing their progress. He saw the bond strengthening, yet he also sensed the danger. The curse was restless, growing in ways that were not entirely visible. He knew that the heir and Luna would face a trial soon, one that could either solidify the bond or shatter it entirely. One evening, as the moon hung low and crimson over the kingdom, the heir returned to the forest. The Luna was waiting, her eyes reflecting the red light, her presence more intense than ever. "I feel it," the heir whispered. "The shadows, they are moving closer. They will test us soon." "Yes," she said, her voice steady, yet laced with a warning. "And when they come, we must face them together. There is no room for hesitation, no room for fear, only trust and courage." They stood in silence, the forest holding its breath. The moonlight glinted off the snow, painting the world in silver and red. The air felt the bond pulse stronger than ever, yet the shadows seemed to stir in response, growing darker, sharper, waiting for the moment to strike. And then, as if sensing their resolve, the forest itself seemed to shift. A figure emerged from the darkness, tall, cloaked in shadow, its presence radiating cold. The heir's chest tightened. He could feel the curse reaching for them, testing their bond, probing their courage. The Luna stepped forward, hand outstretched. "Together," she whispered. The heir nodded, stepping beside her. The shadows twisted and lunged, but the bond between them flared like a flame in the dark. They faced it together, their courage and trust intertwining. Yet the heir knew this was only the beginning. The shadows recoiled slightly, but their eyes, if shadows had eyes, seemed to burn with the promise of more trials, more tests. And the heir understood the truth that the Alpha had always known. The bond was fragile. The bond was powerful. And the shadows were patient. As the night deepened and the first strike of the shadow faded into the trees, the heir felt a new determination stir within him. He would face whatever came, protect the bond, and stand with the Luna. But even as he breathed in the cold, still air of the forest, he knew the trial was far from over. The curse was waiting. The shadows were waiting. And the next move could change everything. The moon hung low over the kingdom, a deep crimson that bled through the sky and painted the snow in streaks of silver and red. The forest seemed alive, the shadows twisting in restless anticipation. Tonight the heir would face the final test, the bond, the curse, and the choices that would determine the fate of the kingdom. He stood at the edge of the frozen lake, the wind biting through his cloak. The Luna appeared beside him, her presence radiant yet tempered with the calm strength that had drawn him to her from the beginning. Their bond pulsed between them, a fragile thread of energy growing stronger with every heartbeat. "The shadows have grown restless," she said, her voice steady. "The curse waits for fear. It will test our hearts and our trust. Are you ready? The heir swallowed, the cold air catching in his throat. He had trained, learned, and felt the bond grow stronger over countless days. Yet he knew that knowledge alone would not save him. Courage alone would not break the curse. He would need more: trust, honesty, and the willingness to face the deepest fears of himself and the Luna. "I am ready," he said, though his voice held a tremor of uncertainty. I will face it with you." She nodded, and for a moment the world felt still, as if the forest itself held its breath. Then the shadows began to move. They came first as whispers in the wind, curling around their legs and twisting through the trees. Then with a sudden roar they surged forward, dark, fluid, alive. The air felt the chill of the curse against his skin, a weight pressing down on his chest, testing his resolve. "Stay close," the Luna whispered, reaching for his hand. Their fingers brushed, not fully touching, yet the energy flared between them, bright and defiant. The shadows recoiled at the force of their bond, hissing like a storm against the mountains. The heir took a deep breath, closing his eyes for a moment to center himself. He could feel her strength, her courage, her heartbeat synchronized with his own. Together they formed a rhythm, a shield against the darkness that threatened to overwhelm them. The shadows shifted, coalescing into a single, towering figure. Its presence was suffocating, cold as the grave, eyes glowing with a malevolent light. The heir realized it was the embodiment of the curse itself, the ancient shadow that had haunted the Luna for generations. "It is testing us," she said, her voice barely audible over the wind. "We must face it together. Do not falter," he nodded, stepping forward. "I will not." The shadow lunged, and instinctively the heir reached for the Luna. Their hands met, and the bond flared with a brilliance that lit the surrounding forest. Light and energy intertwined, wrapping around them both, and the shadow recoiled, screeching in fury. "Trust me," the Luna cried. "Trust the bond." The heir closed his eyes fully, letting go of fear, letting go of doubt. He felt the Luna's courage, her truth, and her hope flowing into him. The shadow struck again, but this time he did not resist with force. He met it with understanding, with the bond itself acting as a shield. The curse's power collided with their connection, and the air trembled with the clash. "You are stronger together than you realize," the Luna said, her energy merging seamlessly with his. "Do not let fear guide you." The air felt a warmth rising in his chest, a light pushing back the darkness. He remembered the Alpha's lessons, the importance of patience, courage, and understanding. He realized that the bond was not just about their connection. It was about the strength they drew from one another, the trust that could conquer even the oldest curses. The shadow wailed, a sound like ice breaking over a frozen lake. It lashed out one final time, but their combined strength held. The bond flared like a sunburst in the crimson night, and the shadow shattered, dissipating into the cold wind. For a long moment there was silence. The snow drifted gently over the frozen lake, covering the remnants of darkness. The air and the Luna stood together, hands clasped fully this time, their breaths synchronized, hearts beating as one. "We did it," the air whispered, disbelief and relief mingling in his voice. "Yes," she replied softly, "but the bond is not over. It will continue to grow, stronger than before. The curse is broken, but our journey is only beginning." The air looked at her, the moonlight reflecting in her eyes like a mirror of the forest itself. He felt a new understanding settle within him. The bond was not just about love or destiny. It was about growth, courage, and the willingness to face the shadows inside themselves and the world around them. Suddenly, the wind shifted. The forest seemed to breathe, alive with energy. And in the distance the Alpha emerged from the tree line, his eyes watching them with a mixture of approval and something softer, almost pride. "You have faced the shadows," he said, his voice carrying over the snow. "You have learned the strength of the bond and the courage it demands. You are ready." The heir stepped forward, bowing slightly in respect, though his gaze never left the Luna. "Thank you," he said, though his heart knew the gratitude was only a part of what he felt. The Alpha nodded, a small smile breaking the mask of authority he always wore. The Luna turned to the Heir, her expression serious yet warm. "The kingdom will remember this night," she said. "Not because the curse was broken, but because of the choice we made together. The bond, it is ours, and it will guide us forward." The Heir nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders, but lighter now, because he knew he would not bear it alone. They had faced fear, darkness, and uncertainty, and emerged stronger. As they walked back toward the castle, hand in hand, the snow beneath their feet seemed to glow faintly, as if the land itself recognized the power of their bond. The forest whispered behind them, shadows now retreating, the wind gentle and forgiving. Inside the castle, the torches burned bright, illuminating the halls that had once felt cold and oppressive. The court gathered, watching in awe as the Heir and Luna entered. There was a new energy between them, a radiance that spoke not of power alone, but of understanding, courage, and trust. The Alpha stepped forward, placing a hand on the Heir's shoulder. "Tonight, you have proven more than your strength," he said. "You have proven your heart. The bond is no longer a test, it is reality, and the kingdom is stronger for it." The Heir felt a warmth spread through him, not just from the words, but from the recognition that he had grown, learned, and chosen wisely. He looked at the Luna, feeling a depth of emotion he had never experienced. The bond between them was no longer fragile, it was a force, forged in courage, trust, and shared struggle. For the first time, the Heir felt a sense of true belonging, not just as a future ruler, but as a partner, a protector, and a companion. The Luna squeezed his hand, a silent affirmation of what they had endured together. Outside, the moon rose higher, pale and gentle now, its crimson shadows replaced by silver light. The kingdom was quiet, peaceful, and yet alive with magic. The curse that had haunted the Luna was broken, but the lessons it brought remained, lessons of patience, courage, and the power of trust. In the quiet of the night, the Heir whispered, "We are ready." The Luna smiled, her eyes shining with the same light that had drawn him to her from the first moment. "Yes," she replied. "Together, we are ready for whatever comes next." The Alpha watched silently, the faintest of smiles on his lips. He had guided them, tested them, and now he could see the future unfolding. The Heir and the Luna had faced shadows, both external and internal, and had emerged stronger. Their bond was no longer just a promise, it was a reality, one that would shape the kingdom for generations. And as they stood together, hands clasped, hearts aligned, and shadows fading behind them, the kingdom itself seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. The trials of the past had been faced, the curse had been broken, and a new chapter began, one of hope, courage, and the enduring strength of a bond forged in darkness and light. The forest whispered around them, the snow shimmered under the moonlight, and the future stretched ahead, vast and unknown. But for the Heir and the Luna, the path was clear. They would face it together, hearts intertwined, stronger than any shadow, braver than any fear, and bound by a love and trust that had been tested and proven true. And for the first time, the Heir understood the true meaning of the Alpha's words. Some bonds require patience and courage, but once proven, they can change everything. Tonight, they had proven theirs.